You know, we went out and did tests in shopping malls. We asked kids, you know, this is the people who think music's free, right? Easily, they'd pay a $50 premium. So we went to the record labels who control the majority of the music. Keith knows this. The big four, you know, still control 85% of the recorded music out there. And we said, hey man, listen, 1 billion cell phones, 30% of them are music capable today. Yeah. They could play songs. If you could get, you know, pick a number, 10% of that market times $50. First of all, it would totally erase the decline in the music industry. Completely. What do you think happened? Oh, we could never do that. We could never do that. You know, and there were objection after objection after objection. Nokia's trying it with this service now called Comes With Music. You know, you throw something at the wall and you see if it sticks. And tried idea after idea, and it's really hard to break through that. Sometimes it takes a lot of capital to do that. And if you're starting a business, you have to sort of think about that in today's economy. So I'm just saying, it's something to think about as you think about the industry, because you don't want it to be one of these things, how to create a small fortune in the music industry, you know, start with a big one and invest in the music industry.
Won't that, record companies are probably going to go away as we know them, so that impediment will be gone, right?
Yeah, but the twitching corpse will twitch for quite a while.
Yeah, but I actually disagree with that, because I do believe that what the internet has brought about is access to musical content that you would have not been able to access or be heard just a short time ago. And I know that from the 170,000 bands in Sonic bids, maybe only a handful are signed to major labels, but all of them have actively performing musical careers. This is the artistic middle class that I'm talking about. And whereas probably none of them will ever be Aerosmith, I think even the definition of success is shifting today. Some of them don't want to go that route. They'd rather have control of the artistic creation, and they know they'll make an okay living. They'll never be millionaires. But what I'm seeing is that more and more companies, including consumer brands, are understanding that there is a wide accessibility to music that has nothing to do with the Sonys and the BMGs and the Warner Brothers. And they're realizing that that music to some degree is perceived as more authentic. So I think that that chokehold that labels had, even 3 or 4 years ago, is changing. And I mean, since we're talking about entrepreneurship, you know, that comes with music thing. I was actually on a panel with a guy who's in charge of that program in London. And in and of itself, that's entrepreneurial. The fact that somebody said, wow, let's try this business model. So there's business models that are coming about today, whether you call it business models around major label music or indie music or whatever, which way you want to define it, that just wouldn't have been possible, you know, just a short time ago. So anyway, I for one believe that in 5 years from now, we're not going to be talking about major label music and indie music and this. We're just going to be talking about music. We're not going to be talking about international markets, domestic markets. We're just going to be talking about the market. And at least from where I'm sitting, dealing with a lot of, let's call them emerging artists or empowered artists, as I like to call them, that market is growing. I mean, we've had bands who've toured China through Sonic Bids. Wow. These are bands that probably you don't know and I don't know about. Or the fact that Converse did a whole branding campaign using entirely independent music. This, for me, is a sign of, you know, of things to come and opportunities to come about.
So a little bit of clarity. It's not so much for me as to agree or disagree. Some of the economics that we're hearing, I'd like to lend a little clarity to some of the issues that Panos identifies as being issues that were prevailing for that industry where we talked about major labels and indie labels. They boil down to a number of things that are really important for young, whether you're a musician looking at the possibility of having a career, and yes, you are these days an entrepreneur as such, and or someone who wants to get into the music business in any one way or another. There is more music being consumed today than ever before, by far. I can't give you stats that are necessarily reliable, but it is true. And yes, there is far less plastic being bought and sold. There are a great number, in terms of that music consumption, there's a great amount of file sharing, of downloading. Some of it's being paid for, certainly not enough, that's being monetized to make up for the losses in the decline of in the sale of plastic. And there are absolutely, you walk through, those of us, and I think probably all of us do from time to time, walk through the halls of the great old companies. And they are that quiet. And it's frightening. I mean, it's depressing. I spend a lot of time visiting with record label executives who say things like, true story, they say, we don't know what to do. And even the ones that used to say, we know exactly what to do. And we know the difference from among them. And they don't really know what to do because they're burdened with a lot of what are old channels of communication, distribution, sales, marketing that they relied upon, and there were really three. And it was television, it was print, and most importantly, there was radio. And as Panos points out beautifully, what's happened is that there are bands that make a living that unless you know them, you don't know them, and you may never ever hear of them, never know their name, and they'll do fine, and they'll have a living. And that definition of success is, to some degree, by just requirement, changing so that success doesn't mean arena rock selling 90 and 100% houses. But in fact, being able to play clubs, being able to find a sponsor so that you can even sit in your living room and record and be able to put music out for friends, for family, and hopefully a few numbers of people beyond that so that you can make a living. You certainly, as an entrepreneurial effort and in the entrepreneurial spirit, you can make a business. One of the things that I know that we all engage in one way or another, Panos very directly and I do very directly, get involved with helping artists to really be their own business, to provide them with tools. And our businesses are very different, but we get to the same place, which is to provide artists with the opportunity, the tools, and the wherewithal to be able to own and control much more of their own business. Where we run into some very interesting differences, and this is a real entrepreneurial challenge, which I'm going to then throw back to you guys because I want to kind of stay close to technology in this discussion. And it is, the internet has done this incredible, incredible leveling. I can record in my bathroom with a rig that I can fit in the sink and do a really nice job, if I know how to make the toys work, of getting a fairly sophisticated recording. And then I can publish it and put it out there on the internet for the whole world to hear. But there are tens of millions of other people doing the same thing. And they're doing it everywhere. Everywhere. They're doing it in China and India, and they're doing it in emerging, populations in places that we may not even know, but there's a Pro Tools rig and somebody's recording and they're putting it out there. So when we deal with the concepts of what major labels used to provide, and they are still around, we still are faced with a couple of realities that have not changed at all in terms of need. And that is that every artist, to have some level of commercial success, needs an audience. And every product needs a customer. The entrepreneurial challenge, and the spectrum is broad in terms of where you can meet these challenges and potentially make business in dealing with and overcoming these challenges, is in how do you find that audience that someone like Panos has been able to help artists to do by helping for them to create channels within which they can create a viable way to show a world that can reach them, who they are, where they are, what they do, what it costs for you to access what they've got, how to get them on a stage, how to get their music. And so what is there is that Panos has put, and correct me if I'm wrong, Panos, but there's a very effective method for allowing artists to enter into a dialogue with its audience